I'm in Bala in the home of Dr. Graham Thomas, who some years ago set up a charity called HIV Lesotho. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So thank you for your welcome today, Graham.
Pleasure.
So before we talk about the charity and some particular projects you've got on the go, maybe a little bit of the history, how you got involved with this in the first place.
Well, as a junior doctor, I worked in South Africa and then got involved through Carl Klaus and Dolen Cymru Lesotho with visiting and looking at the health needs in Lesotho, this country nobody's ever heard of, and finding that there were quite a lot of needs that maybe we were quite well positioned to start to assist in one particular very rural mountainous area called Tebelong.
And the name HIV Lesotho suggests that initially, at any rate, healthcare, and particularly aimed at people with HIV, was your main focus.
Yeah, so this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the HIV pandemic was particularly sweeping southern Africa and particularly affecting the poorer communities. People were sick, people were dying, the hospital wards were full of emaciated people in a bad state, dying unpleasant deaths, and there was no testing available. There was certainly no treatment available, and the fear and stigma was, it's difficult to appreciate now, but it was overwhelming.
Well, that sounds like a huge project for what must have been a very small organisation. So how did you go about doing all of that?
Through working with the local hospital, and the churches actually were quite instrumental because the churches were coming in fresh, as it were, without the health baggage. We got the church leaders to start testing themselves and their congregation, and the leadership of actually the Prime Minister of Lesotho to get every Mosotho to know their HIV status. And when that testing became available, it coincided with some of the early HIV antiretroviral treatments, and slowly but surely it became mainstream. By now, it's part of the standard health service to offer testing to everyone who goes to hospital, and treatment, of course, for all those who test positive. So that by now, it's actually quite rare for a child to be born with HIV from its mother. Mother-to-child transmission is almost stopped.
So it's a transformed situation compared to what it was.
Very much so, yes.
So Graham, with HIV being something that's now controlled and tested, and it sounds a transformed situation in Lesotho, your focus as a charity is now shifting. I wonder if you could explain to us your direction of travel.
Well, especially since the COVID pandemic, we've focused much more on schools, and in particular the role of schools in supporting the most vulnerable children and young people. In Lesotho, due to HIV, partly due to COVID and general poverty and health, child-headed households are relatively common. So these are groups of children and young people who've lost all close adult relatives, who are living by themselves, fully responsible for everything. Wow. There's now a small allowance from the Lesotho government, but that's relatively recent for these families.
And that's quite common in Lesotho, the child-headed family.
Every village will have some.
Yeah.
So we've established a hospice and working with local churches to get to know who these families are, and bring them under the wing of both the church, the school, and to a certain extent the health system. But the schools have been key with free breakfast, free lunch, education, of course, and some sort of pastoral oversight of the children's well-being.
So in recent years, your focus has been working with schools, in schools, school buildings, that kind of thing?
Yes, helping the school buildings to get up to some sort of standard where they're not leaking, the windows and doors close, that some of the rooms will have electricity has been a big step. And we set up, during COVID, a mobile computer class with laptops moving school to school and a teacher teaching. Now each school has its own computer teacher and small suite of computers with electricity. And the next step, we hope to get each school online so that they can use the internet and all the resources that come with that. This is a greeting to Ysgol Godre Berwyn in Bala from Tebelong High School in Lesotho.
I wonder if you could tell us, Graham, about a specific school you have in mind that you'd like to complete some work, but it sounds like an interesting case study in what can happen in your line of work.
Yes, there's one school that got left behind, really, and we were aware of this, but quite a remote school, quite poor community, and difficult to communicate with. Hamahabe is the name of the village and its primary school. There's 50 to 100 kids, potentially, who would benefit from education there. And USAID, the American governmental organization, has funded and has built most of 2 additional classrooms, but ran out of funds, and due to the American politics, USAID has now ceased to function in Lesotho and many other places. So this building is half completed, some funds still in the account, but unable to fund the completion of the works. So we're looking to raise £5,000 over the next few months to get that school building completed, watertight, and with electricity, and hopefully also with Starlink internet connectivity, so we can have a small computer suite there, and those kids, Hamahabe's children, can get up to the same standards as the other children in Tebelong Primary and Secondary School, which is far in advance of other rural African schools.
So £5,000 will complete the work?
Well, 4,000 plus gift aid, but 5,000 is what we're aiming for. Can you just introduce yourself and tell us where we are and what we're doing?
Okay, I am Senonira Trongo. I was born and bred here in Tebelong, and apparently I'm working here. It's been 10 years working here. I'm an English teacher. I teach English language and development studies.
Here at Tebelong High School with the senior pupils. And what's the story over the last year or so here at Tebelong High School?
Tebelong High School is found in the rural areas where there's no technology. Students are not familiar with a lot of things. But then we initiated some fundings from people that we know, people like Dr. Thomas from Wales, who helped us with some connection of the internet. Some computers were brought here in our school. So there are a lot of changes that are happening here at school, because now that we are using technology, it is captivating the interest of our students, our learners, and then the results are basically improving as compared to the previous years. Because I believe that technology, since they are fond of technology, so when we are using it, they become interested and then they learn.
So one of your responsibilities is English teaching. Have you noticed any effect on the standard of English literacy in school?
Mm-hmm. I've noticed that there's improvement, and apparently I am now doing my master's degree, and then my study is based on using the ICT to teach English language basically I'm using subject-verb agreement because my students are struggling when it comes to subject-verb agreement. So I'm using those computers and the internet that is provided to teach them using that. So I think all in all, there's a change.
And I think there needed to be some work on the school buildings to get them in better condition. Have you noticed any change to the teaching conditions?
There's a change in the teaching conditions because our classrooms are in poor conditions. They were, but then there are some improvements that were provided. Students were suffering more, especially when it's winter, because it's cold. Some windows will be broken, some doors not closing properly, but these days they are closing. We see the improvement. The improvement is there, becoming there gradually.
And what effect on morale for the school pupils, for the students as well as the teachers?
The morale has improved. The morale has improved. We come here to the conducive, we come to our school to a conducive environment whereby we don't struggle with buying data, whereby when we are doing the work, we are no longer depending on paperwork. So there's a morale. And then from the rumors or from this, other students, they be telling us that other students from outside Tebelong are interested to come to Tebelong High School because now Tebelong High School has got a boarding, a beautiful one for that matter, which has the flush toilets. They are bathing with using the showers,
hot showers soon.
Hot showers soon. So yeah, I think all in all, there's an improvement.
Ke a leboha.
Ke a leboha, ntate.
And how about the future then, Graham? We've talked about healthcare, we've talked about your work in schools, but I know you've mentioned a wider kind of project to do with the kind of like more of the overt spiritual life of the country. I wonder if you could tell us about that.
Well, Lesotho is a very faith-filled country, and people's faith and walk with God is very much a part of their day-to-day existence. So you can discuss God's plans for the hospital with a hospital administrator is completely normal there. But the traditional churches have really been hollowed out by HIV, by the COVID lockdown, which was very restrictive and prolonged in Lesotho, and a cultural shift where young people just stopped going to church almost completely and haven't restarted. But these are believers, and in school they will sing, they will pray, they will worship, but there's a real gap for regrowing the local churches. There are 5 church congregations in the 5 villages, and we very much want to support a Christian couple who are very experienced in teaching Christian work. One is a farmer and his wife, and they want, God's put on their heart to be child and youth evangelists, and not to plant new churches, but to get the existing churches full of children and young people and develop the discipleship and church life, worshipping life of those churches. So we would very much love, if we can, to help support that couple, Joshua and his wife, Latlala, over the coming years.
Well, Graham, thank you so much for your welcome, for your enthusiasm for the charity and your faithfulness over many decades now. And we wish you every blessing in your endeavours. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we filmed the original story, there's been some good news and some very sad news. The good news is that the primary school, Hamahabe, that needed a roof and indeed everything else, now has a roof, a good roof, sound, and work is progressing. We still need internal decor and paint and a floor and of course furniture for the school to start to use the building. The sad news, the very sad news, is that the wife of our chairman, Joshua, who as a family, they were considering a call as evangelists back to Tebelong. Very suddenly, Mare, who is known as Mere Tumetse Ramatladi, and previously her childhood name Sotang Mohale in Tebelong, she died and has left her husband as a widow and 2 children, one in high school, one in primary school. But as a family, they're still considering the call to Tebelong, and we would still like to raise funds to support Joshua and his family as they return to Tebelong to call the children and the young people back to the Lord Jesus and to support the churches in this work. I hope you'll be able to continue to support us, and with many thanks from the community in Tebelong.